When we talk about innovation in schools, a lot of people look maybe to the digital part of a school, or they look at the school building. But for me and the schools that we work with, what do I see every day? The most innovative schools are not the ones with the glass and the steel and the amazing architecture. They're sometimes the ones that just have passionate teachers who want to put more learning into the hands of students themselves. So to do that, we see teachers provoking students more, making students ask why much more, encouraging students to remember what it was like when they were 6 years old and they only asked why, and that was all they did. They provide really rich media, multimedia environments. They provide lots of activities that help students have discussions that they wouldn't normally have if they were just on their own. They also manage to really fundamentally understand why students would want to learn what it is they're learning. And I think this is the core. At the moment, all over Europe, all over the world, students are being given curricula which are neither good nor bad. Curriculum is just stuff people need to learn, according to someone. It's how we as teachers craft that curriculum and help students access it that makes the difference between doing stuff because you have to and doing something because you really want to and you think that you've got something to contribute. And for me, the final point is that when you have students finding those original problems to solve for themselves, when they become problem finders and not just problem solvers, there you have the kind of innovative learning that we need for the century ahead.
Bienvenidos esta tarde a Ibercaja Patio de la Infanta. En esta conferencia, Nuevos entornos de aprendizaje, en la que contamos con Ewan Mcintosh. Me acompañan también Teresa Martínez, directora del Colegio Sagrado Corazón de Jesús. Muy bien. y Javier Martínez, que es jefe de zona de la editorial Santillana. Bueno, desde la obra social de Ibercaja estamos muy satisfechos de estar apoyando el cambio de paradigma en el modelo educativo pues, que la sociedad en España y en el mundo en general, ¿no?, está demandando. A apoyar este cambio dedicamos muchos recursos, muchos esfuerzos. Quiero destacar, seguro que muchos de ustedes nos han acompañado a lo largo de estos meses, el programa que acaba de finalizar, de Educar para el Futuro, en su 5ª edición, en el que a lo largo de estos 3 meses pues, hemos tenido oportunidad de compartir con verdaderos líderes de la innovación educativa a nivel mundial, pues como un Richard Herbert, Robert Swart, Mar Romera, Tina Maquela, Federico Malpica, Tassin Rahim, etcétera, ¿no? Bueno, y la verdad es que además de, bueno, pues de poder profundizar con todas las metodologías, las buenas prácticas, quiero destacar que el nivel de audiencia ha sido muy importante. Es un programa, Educar para el Futuro, que empezó en el año 2012 y, bueno, pues en ese año llegamos a unas 2.500 personas. Bueno, pues con esta última edición el índice de participación se ha multiplicado por bastante. Hemos llegado a más de 11.000 personas, ¿no?, se están beneficiando de nuestro programa. Y digo se están porque 9 de las conferencias más importantes del programa las tienen ustedes colgadas en Aula en Red de Obra Social de Ibercaja. Igual que la de hoy, que también vamos a tener el honor de que, bueno, pues gracias a la generosidad de Ewan Mcintosh, pues va a estar también, se está grabando y la tendrán ustedes a disposición en la Aula en Red de Ibercaja. Como les comentaba, bueno, pues además del programa de Educar para el Futuro, pues desde la obra social de Ibercaja queremos actualizar ese compromiso y dar continuidad a nuestro apoyo en torno a la innovación educativa a lo largo de todo el año. Y de ahí que ofrezcamos pues, actividades como la de hoy, cursos, talleres, etcétera, de los cuales ustedes pueden tener información de todo ello en la página web de Obra Social de Ibercaja. Concretamente, la semana que viene pues también vamos a ser sede aquí en Ibercaja Patio de la Infanta del Congreso Europeo Flipped Classroom. Y tampoco quiero dejar de comentarles que el día 10 de mayo tendremos aquí una conferencia, implementación de la innovación pedagógica en los centros educativos, que me parece muy interesante a cargo de Federico Malpica. Tienen ustedes, creo, información que les hemos ido dando, porque hemos establecido un acuerdo con el Instituto Escalae y la obra social de Ibercaja, por la cual el año que viene vamos a desarrollar en colaboración un programa para ayudar a los comités directivos de los colegios a implementar la innovación educativa, ¿no? Que es algo pues, que a todos nos preocupa, pero que muchas veces pues, uno recibe muchos inputs y no sabe por dónde empezar. Bueno, pues les anuncio que el día 10 de mayo será la presentación de este programa aquí en Ibercaja Patio de la Infanta. Y todas estas actividades pues las desarrollamos, es muy importante, ¿no?, contar con buenos compañeros de viaje. Y en este caso, pues nosotros contamos con un buen compañero de viaje, como es Escuelas Católicas de Aragón, que colabora con nosotros en programas de educación desde hace muchos años. Y también quiero destacar pues este año la colaboración de la editorial Santillana. Pienso que son momentos muy importantes son momentos de cambio en la sociedad y son momentos muy importantes de apoyar el cambio en la innovación educativa. Y todo eso se puede hacer si sumamos esfuerzos. Desde luego, desde la obra social de Ibercaja estamos orgullosos de ser agentes que sumamos esfuerzos, ¿no? Y en este caso, pues gracias a la colaboración de la editorial Santillana, como les decía, y gracias también, y por eso quiero felicitar hoy, pues a Teresa y a todo el equipo del Sagrado Corazón de Jesús por haber tenido la iniciativa de traer, de organizar esta conferencia, ¿no? Y de traer a Ewan Mcintosh y bueno, pues que por parte de Ibercaja, Obra Social, pues estamos encantados de poder colaborar también para llevar a cabo este gran proyecto. Y sin más, pues le paso la palabra a Teresa.
Bueno, pues buenas tardes. Yo lo primero que quiero decir también es expresar mi agradecimiento, porque para nosotros es una oportunidad el que nos hayáis cedido con tan buen agrado y con tanta capacidad de facilitar la dificultad que esto entrañaba el espacio, por supuesto también a Santillana, porque también habéis aportado vuestra interesante colaboración y además yo creo que nos conocemos desde hace tiempo y esto ayuda a trabajar de una manera cómoda. Presentar este momento yo creo que es complicado porque, entre otras cosas, yo supongo que habréis leído la información, todo el mundo estamos aquí porque conocemos a Ewan Mcintosh, seguro que estamos aquí porque hemos oído hablar de él. Entonces yo creo que no sé si tiene tanto sentido presentarlo como el destacar algunos aspectos que nos han parecido a nosotros importantes. ¿Por qué estamos aquí hoy nosotros? Bueno, pues quizá por lo mismo, y me atrevo a especular que por lo que estáis los agentes de la sala en este momento también. ¿Qué pasa? Estamos en una situación en que la educación es un reto, es una dificultad. Educar es algo que nos ocupa, nos preocupa y nos genera, cuando menos, inquietud. La escuela ha estado sometida a situaciones de grandes preguntas, nos han vertido sobre los colegios cantidad de problemas que la propia sociedad no ha sabido resolver y los han trasladado a la educación, generándonos también una situación de demanda sangrante, dura, clara y que a veces no hemos podido responder. ¿Qué nos ha pasado a nosotros en los colegios? ¿Qué nos está pasando en los colegios? Que necesitamos llegar, enganchar con esta nueva generación, con estos niños, jóvenes, adolescentes, que quieren seguir aprendiendo, pero a veces nos cuesta creerlo o nos cuesta entrar allí. Y esa ha sido la razón por la cual este colegio, nuestro equipo, decidió ponerse en marcha hace tiempo, llevamos buscando hace tiempo y en concreto tuvimos la suerte de participar en un congreso de innovación educativa en el cual, en Pamplona, celebrado en Pamplona y patrocinado por el colegio Irabia Izaga, en el cual él estaba como ponente y aportó, desde nuestro punto de vista, algo que yo creo que creemos que es crucial en este momento en la educación. Vino a decir que lo más importante, yo me quedé con una idea, lo más importante o lo más valioso a la hora de educar no es tanto resolver problemas, sino ser capaces a la hora de educar de encontrar e identificar los problemas que tenemos que resolver. Y del mismo modo, educar supone, en definitiva, identificar las necesidades a las que tenemos que responder. Es decir, es previa la pregunta a la respuesta. Y eso es lo que a mí me marcó en el encuentro, en ese congreso, como una dinámica que podía generar todo el movimiento que se ha provocado en nuestro centro, en el que de alguna forma estamos focalizando nuestra atención en el alumno. Él es el protagonista y yo creo que ese es el reto que nos tiene que seguir uniendo. No podemos perder de vista con la innovación lo más importante, es el alumno, su potencial y su futuro. Tener a Ewan Mcintosh con nosotros supone tener una persona muy experimentada. Yo sí que quiero decir que otra cosa que me impresionó es que empezó como profesor de idiomas, de lenguas extranjeras, empezó como profesor de francés y de alemán, pero que en su movimiento, en su búsqueda, en su saber o intentar hacerle de la educación algo vivo, bueno, pues conoces un poco su trayectoria y acabas viendo que está asesorando, bueno, ha trabajado en un canal de televisión en Escocia, un canal además movido, inquieto, está asesorando a miembros del Consejo Europeo, está moviéndose en el mundo, por supuesto, de la publicidad. Entonces, yo creo que ahí tenemos otra luz que nos indica qué es educar hoy. Educar hoy es abrir puertas, educar hoy es no cerrarse en el campo de lo meramente educativo, y yo creo que tenemos una persona aquí que nos va, en este sentido, a dinamizar en esa dirección. Hoy hemos estado trabajando todo el día en el colegio a base de preguntas, sobre todo preguntas. Hemos estado una sesión de 6 horas elaborando preguntas y alguna respuesta, por supuesto. Entonces yo no quiero robar tiempo al que merece la pena escuchar hoy, que es él, y le cedo entonces la palabra.
Bueno, pues muchísimas gracias, Teresa, porque realmente, bueno, pues es un gusto, ¿no?, que desde el Colegio Sagrado Corazón de Jesús hayáis querido compartir con toda la comunidad educativa de Aragón y con toda la comunidad educativa que después seguirá esta conferencia online, bueno, pues ese buen hacer, ¿no?, y ese trabajo que estáis realizando en vuestro centro. Creo que esto es un poco a lo que tenemos que tender, ¿no?, a compartir prácticas, compartir experiencias y entre todos empujar, porque realmente pues trabajar en educación es muy grato, pero también es muy esforzado, ¿no? Y pienso que entre todos sumamos y entre todos pues estamos construyendo día a día un mundo mejor. También quiero felicitarles a ustedes por haber decidido estar esta tarde con nosotros. La verdad es que la apuesta de la comunidad educativa por la formación, bueno, aquí la estamos constatando y no quiero dejar de felicitarles porque sé que su tiempo es oro, ¿no?, y que su jornada, bueno, pues que continúa, el hecho de haber decidido continuarla hoy hasta el final del día aquí, continuando con la formación, pues tiene muchísimo mérito. Así que muchas gracias a todos. Y bueno, primero será la conferencia de Ewan Mcintosh y después daremos pie al coloquio. Así que nosotros nos bajaremos de la mesa para que Ewan dé su conferencia y luego estableceremos el coloquio. Muchas gracias a todos, de verdad.
Gracias. When you talk about the idea of new spaces for learning, often people think of this. They think of the physical space of a school. And this is one of the physical spaces in a school that we've partnered with, in the same way as we're partnering with your school here in Zaragoza. This school is in China, in Nanjing, and people fly from all over the world to go and see this building. And they don't understand that this is not where the innovation is. It's not the glass, the wood, the steel. It's not the architecture that makes this school amazing. And yet they will say, have you seen their school? And I also have directors of school who, when you arrive at the school, they say, this is our school. And they kind of apologize. They say, it was built in the 1970s. That this was, you know, or it was built in the 1960s. It's full of asbestos. It's hot in summer and it's hot in winter. It's freezing cold at strange times of day when the heating breaks. They talk about the physical environment. For me, the most innovative schools I've worked with are sometimes those who have this kind of environment. It's what I call IKEA innovation. 100 euros, 200 euros, no more. And you see this amazing innovation taking place in a rather open space. This is the kind of innovation I would like to talk about today. And for me, the point here is one of leadership. And every one of you is a leader. Even if you don't have the word director or whatever in your job title, you're here at 7 p.m. on a school night because you chose to be here. That makes you a leader of education in your community. So how are we doing with the English, incidentally? It's really, every time I speak English, I have fluent English speakers in the audience. 2 minutes in, there is suddenly hands up saying, I need a translation unit. So this is a challenge with a Scottish accent. So, you know, there's a joke, the Italian mafia make you an offer you can't refuse. The Glasgow mafia make you an offer you will never understand. So, and the problem with jokes, here, it takes 4 seconds, there we go. So agile means flexible. Leadership, you make a choice to do something, and learning. Learning is at the heart of everything we do when we talk about creating new space for learning. I'm not going to talk too much about physical environments. For me, that's not the thing that's interesting. I'm going to talk about something totally different, and I'm going to start with a story. So once upon a time, I wonder, do any of you have one of these in your school? Do you know what it is? So, yeah, a 3D printer, 3-dimensional printer. If you go to the United States, large parts of Asia, these are a fetish item in schools. Every school, you visit the school to see the children, to see the learning, and the first thing they say is, come and see our 3D printer, and they drag you over. And there it is. There's no children touching the 3D printer, but there it is, the 3D printer. And this is the advert for the 3D printer. So this is their best effort at selling a $2,500 3D printer. This is the best they can do. $2,500 so that your students can print a red, stupid rabbit. A rabbit that's going to be thrown out into the trash, fill the planet up with more plastic that we don't need. The biggest problem with these 3D printers is that we're missing something sometimes in education. Technology is a good example where we often miss an important question. This question, though, was understood by some people. There was a chap in America about 4 years ago who made himself an Edward Scissorhands Halloween costume using some craft materials. But it was quite sophisticated, you know, put a lot of effort into it. He published the photograph online, and there was, at the same time, a carpenter on the other side of the planet in South Africa. This carpenter had chopped a finger off, accidentally. He wasn't trying to. So he had an accident, chopped his finger off, and now he can't do his job. So he's online on an internet cafe, and he sees this on a Reddit forum. You know Reddit? It's a very popular website. So he sees this on Reddit, and he goes, Eureka. Maybe I could make a version of a hand or a finger for me. And the community cafe had a 3D printer. So he printed himself a 3D printed hand. And there it is. So it's very crude, and he's used those little photocopy rubber things to give some grip. But this is a whole hand, 3D printed, prototype. And he published that. So his story, that's 2 inspirations. One is Halloween, one is a carpenter in South Africa. Inspiration 3 is a teacher in the United States called John Schul. So we go back over the Pacific, and we see this. John Schul wonders whether he could use Google Maps to allow people to say, we have a 3D printer doing nothing, and a 3D map which says, we are people with no hands or no fingers. We need hands or fingers. In America, it's a huge problem because healthcare means that many people cannot afford a prosthetic hand. They have to pay for it. They don't have the funds. So John teamed up And he created a better prototype of that hand. He's a craft design technology teacher. He created this prototype. He said, this is the basic hand. There they are. If you have a 3D printer, we will help you find someone who needs a hand. And team you up. You can get the size right, the color. You can make them the hand of their dreams. Serendipity 4. Here's Liam. He's 5 years old. His entire short life, he's been bullied because he has a small hand. He was born with a small hand. Now, he's got a hand that means every kid at school, every father with a slight geek hidden inside, looks at that hand and goes, wow, that is the coolest hand I've ever seen. Where can I get one? Where can I have one? And it's allowed him to play, to take part in life. Serendipity number 5, there's Liam with his hand. Serendipity number 5 takes me to my friend Chris Kraft, Spanish teacher and French teacher, who started teaching the same time as me. I was a French and German teacher. And we both have a skepticism about technology, a healthy skepticism. So we look at technology, and the first thing we go is, really? Will that make my learning better? Will that add value? And his problem, he's a teacher in the States, his boss, said, look, there's money for these 3D printers. Can you put together a proposal? You'll get the money and buy these 3D printers. So now he has these 3D printers and doesn't know what to do. So he goes to his students, as always, goes to his grade 6 students and says, girls, what should we do with the 3D printer? What do you think they did? They go off to Google and they say, how can we use 3D printers for good? One of the first results is a website by John Shelley, this teacher who created a Google map that brings these people together. And they discover that they can not only build hands using the free download prototype, but also there is a girl not 50 miles away who needs a hand. So they telephone and Skype with Alyssa, who is 12 years old. They ask her, what kind of hand do you need? What do you need it for? What do you do? How are you going to use this hand? What's your favorite color? It turns out Alyssa's favorite color is purple. And they built Alyssa's hand. And the newspaper story, they interviewed all the kids. And they said, for Alyssa, it was nothing short of life-changing. They helped me do things I wouldn't be able to do. So what's the big, innovative thing that Alyssa was able to do? She said, I was able to pick up my textbook for the first time without it dropping yesterday. And this is where half the audience are saying, what is she using a textbook for? Shouldn't it be an iPad? Shouldn't it be something more innovative than that? That's not the point. The point is she was empowered to do something she couldn't do the day before thanks to the technology. So what have Chris, John, all these educators, all these students got in common? When they see a 3D printer, they ask a question. What do you think the question is? In English or in Spanish? What for? In German, you use the word wofür, which is another way of saying warum, which is another way of saying por qué. Why? Why would we have this? And why is the most brilliant question you could ever ask? If a teacher only ever asked students why, the class would be annoying, but it would be a better class than many of the classes where the teacher just tells content. Why is a fascinating question. And it has a cousin when you're coming up with ideas. Why not? And why not is even more of an inventive question. Why not inspires incredible ideas. So at NOTOSH is my team. And NOTOSH is Scottish. It means no nonsense. And we created the company because in 2009, we had global recession, teachers having less money, schools having fewer teachers, and at the same time, we were all being told that schools kill creativity. Schools are uncreative places, and we're going to take some money away from you now. And I was frustrated. I was working for a television company. I am a teacher, but I got fed up. I went to work for a TV company. And while I was there, I saw creative people who knew how to be creative. They had a methodology. And in schools, I saw really creative teachers, but it was chance. Is this creative or not creative? They didn't really have a recipe. They didn't know. And I said, well, let's try and cut the nonsense and see if we can share the process. And this is it. It's really quite simple. The idea is we have an immersion where you go deep into things. You go broad. Synthesis, where students find problems they can solve. Ideation and prototyping, where they solve the problem and develop their ideas into maybe physical products, and all the way through feed forward or feedback, ways to improve their learning. Now, with the colleagues mostly here in the front from the, I can never pronounce the name, the Sagrada Corazón, we need a shorter school name, okay? Colegio Sagrada Corazón de Jesús. I'm going to call it the Colegio. So the teachers from the Colegio have been exploring this today. They are some of the most exhausted looking people in this room, because thinking like this is very different and very tiring. And they're tired because they were being the students today. I'm not tired because I was the teacher. And the goal of thinking like this is that when you are thinking differently, when you are the student, you should be more tired than your teacher. And at the moment, I'm going to guess that most of you are more tired than your students at the end of a long day. So this process is useful. However, students only ever do the second part. So tonight, put your hand up. Are you planning a lesson later on tonight? Are you planning a unit or a lesson or something for tomorrow? Yeah? Hands up. Just wait for the translation. Otherwise, I'm going to think you're really irresponsible teachers. So, okay, I think 30% are planning. I'm going to assume 30% are either children who've been dragged here by their teacher parents who don't want to be here, retired people, or school leaders who can't remember what it was like to plan a lesson. And maybe we could change that tonight. The problem when you plan a lesson, where do you plan your lesson? Where do you plan? In your bedroom, home office, in front of the football? At your desk. Okay. So if he's planning this immersion, say it's history and revolutions, he says French Revolution, let's do terror. So he picks terror, which was 2 months. Really, the important part. And he says, let's just look at 2 months of terror. So he has gone immersion, synthesis in 10 seconds. Produces a beautiful lesson and off he goes. The problem is that how many students do you see every week? As a secondary school teacher, I saw 180 students every week. So I need to plan a lesson that is going to hit 180 Vygotsky zones of proximal development. And that is impossible. You cannot do it. Even a primary school teacher with 20 people cannot plan 20 individual zones of proximal development. No es posible. Es imposible, can we say that? Yes. Es muy imposible. It's not going to happen. What we do is we create kind of education for the mass. And we hope it hits someone. But it doesn't hit the bottom and it doesn't hit the top. We only hit this group in the middle. So here's the challenge. If you were to plan, picture this teacher in his study, in his living room, with 180 students sat there with him, planning with him. They wouldn't fit. It would be a tight squeeze. But that's what we do when we give that part of the learning back to students. We actually co-design the objective of learning with them. Now, doing this is tricky, and we're not going to explore that in detail today. Folk from the Colegio are tomorrow. But the most important part of this is that every part of learning, every type of learning you want to do, has a different attitude, a different mindset. It has a different skill set or capacity that you build over time. And to get there, you need to put in different tools at the top. If you want to be a brilliant questioner, then you need to think, well, I need a tool to be a questioner, which could be a thinking cube. These are little dice that you can buy with 6 different types of question on them. Throw it, look at the question, and ask that. That's a tool that helps you become better at questioning. So in immersion, what have we got? The tool might be an interview. By learning how to do a good interview, now you will improve your questioning. The tool could also be a sketch pad and learning how to draw. Today we had drawing class with 20 teachers who all said we can't draw. And then they spent 1 hour drawing, and their ideas are better because they can draw. So drawing, what does that do? It increases your capacity to observe, to see, not just to see things, but to really see what's going on in a classroom. That builds the skill set. By building a skill set in questioning and in observation, we're able to open up a different mindset, a different attitude, much more open, much more divergent. And you know this when you go traveling. I don't know if you go to a country that's very different to yours. What's the country you visited that's totally different? Japan? Morocco? Scotland? And when you go, you see a new country. Suddenly, you start to see things that I don't notice because I see them every day. But you notice because you're new. And that's why I love, when a tourist comes to Edinburgh, I see things I never see because I go to places I never go. I visit bars I'm not allowed to go to. So that's immersion. And synthesis, the same but different. If I want a convergent mindset, then I need the tools to think in a convergent way. What tools are those? I need to be able to spot patterns. So maybe some cluster activity with post-it notes. Maybe use some hexagonal thinking. You can Google that, hexagonal thinking. And you'll discover that there's a whole world of tools that help you think in a different way when you're trying to find problems. And just to give you a flavor, I don't want you to read this slide, but our team has really thought hard. When we want people to think like this, then we need to do that, that, and that. When we want people to change their way of thinking, then we need to do that, that, and that. Tomorrow, I will tweet this, and you can download a nice copy of the graphic and look at it in more detail. If you translate it into Spanish for me, I will give you a copy of my latest book on iPad for free. There you go. I need a translator. So, immersion is an interesting one, and tied to it is the first of 10 things I'm going to talk about tonight. 10. This is the first time I've done this talk. So we're going to go quite fast, and you have one job, only one job. You have to choose one of these 10 things that you like, and then do something with it. Do not try all 10. You will die. It won't work. You'll be unhappy. Your partner will leave you. Your children will disown you. Pick one thing to do, okay? So the first thing is provocation. Provocation is important. That's why I like jokes. Jokes are a form of provocation. You think you're going to have one thing, and then boom, something new comes from the side. And provocation is vital for learning. You cannot learn deeply if you are not provoked. And I'll give you an example. Do you like music? You like classical music? Yes? So, we were answering this question today. Why do we go to school? ¿Por qué vamos al colegio? It's a difficult question. So, I began to think, why do we go to school? And why do teachers come to talks like this at 7 p.m.? Why are you here? What pushed you to come? Because coming here is actually an incredible big step. Because the first thing you're saying is, I don't know everything, and I'm going to try to find something new. Why am I giving this talk? Because I know I don't know everything, and I'm hoping that the collective intelligence of nearly 200 people might help me learn something new for me. Just one thing, that's all I need. I'll be happy and I'll go home. So it got me thinking about music and musical master classes. And there are some lines in Spanish here. I hope it's not Portuguese. I think it's in Spanish. This is, do you know Barenboim? Barenboim, pianist, yeah, and conductor, and horrible man, I think. I want you to listen to this, and I want you to think about the problem of when you're not provoked, and I want you to ask, why is Barenboim being so provocative? Why does he have to be so provocative?
What is the dynamic? What is the dynamic?
Piano.
Ah. What is the dynamic there?
It's still the same. It's pianissimo. Everything here.
So why do you play more?
Because I like it.
I'm very sorry. With all due respect, it's not good enough. If you had said to me, I play it louder, although it's not written, because there is a diminished ninth which has to be resolved, I would have said, chapeau. I may not agree, but you have thought of a good reason to say, because I like it.
No,
That's not good enough.
Of course.
It's not good enough. So let's erase that I don't like it. I like it. Let's erase that and let's start again. Why do you play louder?
How would you like him as your music teacher? Huh? So why the provocation? Why? Because the kid thinks he knows it all, and only by really provoking him does the kid admit, I actually don't have a reason. I don't know why I think that. Your students think they know things. They think they know what they know. They know what they don't know as well. But we can do better. Provocation does just that. So here are some provocations from classes, from children's classes. These are provocations designed by teachers to make students go, huh? And start to ask more questions. For 14-year-olds, when does music become noise? 14 years old is when you think everything is music, and we know it's not music. It's noise. You know, Taylor Swift, great, it's noise. Britney Spears, it's not even noise. So when does music become noise? It's an interesting question, but we actually make it better when we take away the question mark and we say, hey, you, turn that noise off. And that's what mums and dads tell their kids all the time. So then the kid goes, it's not noise, it's music. Why? I don't know. And now we have an investigation. How does an iPad know where it is? The earth is full. Evacuate. Did you know that in 25 years from now, there will be too many people on the planet for the planet to support us? We're going to have to lose someone. It's terrifying. And there is a wonderful TED talk that shows you this, called The Earth is Full. So not only do I have a provocation, I have a piece of media content. What about every speck of dust tells a story? What class was that? That was grade 3 biology. Grade 3 biology. Every speck of dust tells a story. But it could also be grade 12 astrophysics, where you're saying, you know, we are made of stardust. Every one of us is made from a star. If you're an astrophysicist, that's what you believe to be true. What about the last one? Spain is in interesting political times. So this is a great question for any kid or any adult. It's okay to stretch the truth, tell a little white lie, in order to mobilize people into action. I live in Scotland, a country that decided not to become independent because we wanted to be part of a united kingdom. In a United Kingdom that's now deciding quite potentially to leave the European Union, which is now making Scottish people go, well, if we're doing that, we don't want to be part of a United Kingdom, we want to be part of a European Union. What are politicians doing every day? Politicians every day are stretching that truth, and they will make it work until they get what they want. Is that okay? Is that morally okay if the result is better? Is it okay to have ISIS? Or is it okay to have Bashar al-Assad? Which one do you want? Or is there a third option? And how would the truth be stretched by everyone there to put their view forward? We can make this from kindergarten to grade 12 by choosing very carefully the content that we put around a provocation. A simple provocation, but full of questions. The minute I say that, you became uncomfortable. That's the point. And when you become uncomfortable, you start to ask questions about why you feel uncomfortable. Why do you have a problem with this? And that's what inspires some pretty incredible learning. So the second element, I've just referred to it. The provocation is good, but with the provocation, you are like museum curators. You have to collect and curate wonder, video, multimedia, texts, artifacts, physical things, food, visits, excursions, all kinds of things that get students going, why does that work that way? Why is that so? And curating wonder is one of the easiest things, actually, for teachers to do. But we do it the wrong way round at the moment. When you plan your work, my guess is that you have not yet planned what it is you're teaching 8 weeks from now. I'm guessing. You don't have it ready to go. When our teachers are curating wonder, they know exactly the content that they're going to use in 6-7 weeks' time, because they prepare hard to teach easy. And just to bring this into context, when you prepare for 6 weeks for one class, normally, and you should count it, but a teacher giving a certain effort will spend 16 hours preparing that learning. 16 hours for a unit of work. We might repeat it with a different class, but it's 16 hours. How would you feel if I said, we are going to sit down for 16 hours to plan one unit? What kind of planning could you do? It would be pretty good planning. It would be amazing planning, but we never do that. So what we've done is we created this is a, don't try and read it, but it's a brainstorm tool. You print it on big paper, you take a pencil, and you work with 2 or 3 colleagues, and you say, look, here is my provocation. This one's in French. We do them in lots of languages, but not Spanish. If you want to, feel free. So the first thing is a generative, provocative topic. Is it okay to stretch the truth? That's my topic. What subjects, what concepts do I want to teach? Moral values, bit of politics, maybe some economics. Okay, let's go down now and look at the resources. What kinds of resources do I have? Digital resources, TED Talks, TED.com is a really good place to go first. Most of the videos have transcription in Spanish as well. And so you go there and you will find other provocations. You will find some of the world's best speakers and best experts on pretty much every subject under the sun. Nearly 2,000 of them, I think, at the last count. You might also have YouTube videos. You might have some resources in that cupboard under your desk that you never go into. You might have some physical artifacts. So when you're talking about food of the revolution, you know, if you're talking about food of the revolution, make some food. Bring in the ingredients, get the students to cook food of the revolution. What was it? Sustained people as they went through it. What happened, you know, when Napoleon tried to go to Russia, what food did they have? Could we live on that food for one day? It was bread, dry bread, and a little bit of snow melted down. So could you live on that for a day? And then we go over to activities. So it's not just content, but also we think really carefully about the type of activity. Now you might be looking at this going, okay, this is what I do anyway. I think about the activity I'm going to give them. There is a difference between thinking about it the night before or in the lesson and thinking how everything comes together. How does this all tie together? And importantly, we have a curriculum. So what does the curriculum do to inspire us to do more than just the narrow idea we had? So I started with stretching the truth to mobilize people to action. That is a social studies concept. I work with a lot of international baccalaureate schools. I can actually picture the page of the curriculum that ties to that. But when I flip the page of the curriculum either side, I discover in English it ties to that. If I go to modern history, it's tying to that too. And when I look at modern history, I realize this would be so much better if I didn't just use historical revolutions to talk about mobilizing people to action, but what about contemporary ones too? So the curriculum is not this burden, this weight that stops us being creative. The curriculum is your constraint, your design constraint that can inspire some more creativity on the back of it. And very importantly, if you're going to have students accessing all this material themselves, most of it themselves, what skill sets do you need to help them develop? And so we give thought to that. If I need to teach students how to ask a question, I need to plan 20 minutes to teach them. Here's how you can ask great questions. There is one box on the top left that is for direct teaching, like I am doing to you now. This is the least effective way for me to help you change anything. But that's also why I said pick one thing from my 10. Because if you've picked it already, you can go to sleep. If you've not picked it, but you don't like this, you can wait. But the key thing here is this is not the best way to learn. Today was better. Without Louis's translation that he was doing today, I spoke for 13% of the day. That was my only contribution to the day. The rest of the time was activity and action from my students, from the teachers. That's a ratio we keep. We try not to go above 15% because direct teaching just doesn't work all the time. But when it does work, it's for something short, sharp, specific, a masterclass, if you like. And there, it can be really exciting. Let's move on. So asking the right question is, you've heard me talk about questioning a lot. Asking the right question is absolutely key. And you've also got to be able to listen to the response that is given. Teachers have to listen to the responses given by students, but when students ask questions, they need to be able to also listen to the reply that's given. And it's not just students, we are terrible listeners. As a human, as the human species, we are not good listeners. And we'll discover this in just a moment. We provide question starters for people. What was it like the last time you saw an example of teacher excellence? What does it feel like when you have a brilliant lesson at school? What does it look like? What do you see happening? What activities do you see young people doing when things are going well? How does your best lesson compare to your worst lesson? I would love to ask a student that question. That's a great question to ask students, confidentially. You don't even need to know the name of the teacher. You don't need to know that. But how does the best lesson you've ever had compare with the worst lesson you've ever had? And from there, how could we do better? So asking good questions is a skill that takes time to develop, and it needs tools like this. It needs language which is concrete as well. Avoid language which sounds like a government policy paper. That stuff never works. And then you need to be able to listen. And in schools, a lot of listening looks like this telephone. You think that you're being heard, but you're not. You think you're saying something important, but it's not being heard. So this evening we're going to do a little experiment. It's called, how well do you think you listen? And it's a question I'd like to ask you now. How well do you think you listen? Has anyone been told that they're a terrible listener? Maybe tonight as you were coming here. Never? Yes. I think half of you are lying. Most people have been told, oh, you're a terrible listener. You never hear what I'm trying to say. So I'm going to ask you, here's a scale, and I'm going to be very cruel. I'm not going to tell you what the scale means. 0 just means terrible listener. 4 means amazing listener. Like psychotherapist, amazing listener. Okay? So hands up. Who is 0 for their listening? 0. Anyone? There's one person. I think it's me. Statistically, it must be me. Okay? Level 1. Who thinks they're not great, but they can try? Level 1? Level 2? More of you, okay. Level 3, a little bit more confidence, yeah? Okay, any level 4s? There's one at the back. There's a couple here, okay. And what's nice is her friend is saying, you're a brilliant listener, you know? Which makes me want to say, ¿por qué? Why? You know, we could discover something interesting there. So we're going to do a little experiment. Are you happy to do an experiment? Yeah? Okay, you're going to have to stand up. And you're going to have to keep your translation unit on your head. So put the thing in your pocket, okay? Stand up. And make sure you are in a couple, a pair, 2 people. It can be man and man, doesn't matter, okay? No one's looking at you, no one's judging you, okay? So the tallest person is person A. Could the tallest person, person A, put your hands up, both hands, yeah? Person A, tallest person, put your hand up. Wonderful. Person B, could you put your hands up as well? Let's just make sure we know who person B is. Muy bien. Okay. If you don't have a partner, I want you to observe what happens, because it's really interesting. Okay? So person A, I want you to put your hands up like this. Person A. Okay. Person B, can you copy face to face? Okay? Now listen very carefully. We must do this in total silence. Total silence. No whispering, no laughing, no clapping, nothing like that. Person A, in a moment, is going to be in charge. And person A can do anything they like, as long as it's legal. And person B must follow. Okay? When I say, okay, person B, then person B is in charge. And they can do what they like, okay? Just keep listening, look at each other, and enjoy the experience, okay? No talking, total silence. Person A, you are in charge. Go. Person B, you're in charge. Person A, you're back. B. Okay, listen carefully. Continue the exercise, but no one is in charge. Shh. Silence. Okay, we can stop there. Give yourselves a round of applause. That was great. Thank you. Super. So, why did we do that? Something very interesting happened. Now, there's a young woman in the middle who is also observing you with the black and white dots. Yes, you. It's maybe not black and white dots, but you were observing, I think. Or no, it was you in the red, just behind. Sorry, I got mixed up. So you were observing with me. What happened when I said person B and you had to change? What did you all do? You all stopped. You all stopped. You went, oh, this is too much for me to cope with. I've got to change and do something. And then you started doing it. That was the first thing. What happened when I asked you all to continue, but no one was in charge? What did you notice about what happened? You all wanted to speak. You all started to speak and make noise. And this shows me something about your listening. So 0 is cosmetic listening. This is not my work. This is the work of Otto Scharmer. Otto Scharmer, German psychologist, and this is a brilliant way to teach students to be aware of how they're listening. So cosmetic listening is what I call taxi driver listening. So the only taxi language I know is something like, is it donde están? For where are you from? Yeah. And I say, escocés. And he goes, muy bien, escocés. I cannot understand anything at this point. So that's where I say, no hablo mucho español. And he goes, muy bien. Okay. Cosmetic listening. I don't care. I am not his friend. He's not my friend. It's a transaction. Do you recognize cosmetic listening in school? Transaction listening? All the time. When there's tomorrow in school, you'll say, wow, that is cosmetic. So cosmetic is when you have a group of children. Okay, everyone, can you just take a pencil, draw a line under that, and write the date? And of 30 children, 10 have not done it. It's because they don't care. Why would they? It's a stupid activity anyway. So cosmetic listening. Downloading is another type of listening. Downloading is what some people here did. I spotted this. Person A starts. Who had person A doing this? Going really fast. Yeah, this was you. So downloading is when you are just going to download your story. It's like me, 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 me. And then you go, me, 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 me. And then we both go, okay, and walk away. It's downloading. Do you have friends who download to you? Yeah, so you pick up the phone, dime, and then for 20 minutes you don't speak. They download. And then you go, muy bien, when you put the phone down. Downloading. Downloading is very good in immersion. So say we're looking at Spanish Civil War. I know nothing about the Spanish Civil War because I did French and I live in Scotland and we don't look at the Spanish Civil War. So if Luis and I are in a team, I'd say, tell me what you know about the Spanish Civil War. And I am listening because I know nothing. So Luis's download is useful because I can learn quite a lot very quickly. I don't need a teacher, I just need a friend to download. Next is conversation. This is where most people stop. So conversation is where you listen in order to respond. Technology conferences are full of conversations like this. Sorry, I went too fast there. Conversation of, hey, how are you doing? Oh, yeah, really good. We've just started our one-to-one iPad deployment, and all the other person hears is, iPad. It's like, iPad, 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 iPad. They are not interested in the story that comes because all they're thinking is, yeah, I got an iPad for Christmas. It's great. Have you got this app? And all of a sudden, the conversation's destroyed because it's been hijacked. Someone was just listening to respond. So conversation is less useful. You want to get it to empathizing. Empathizing is where I ask a question, what made you say that? What makes you think that? I want to understand why you're saying that so that I can learn more. So that's empathizing. Much more interesting. Much more difficult to respond to. And then finally, emergent collaboration. This is where I'm listening to respond. I'm listening to empathize. So why do you say that? Oh, okay. I have a story that might be interesting here. So I let you tell your story. I come with my story, and together we try to build something new. We try to really blend our stories. But there is a respect between the two people. This is super structured dialogue. But knowing this even exists allows you to do something quite special. When you ask a question, you are really, really listening for the answer. So let me move on. You're generating all these questions. You are generating lots of answers. You need a war room for them to go in. This is one of the most logical things for a class to have, for a school to have, for a school leader to have, for a fundación, for a publisher, for any organization needs its, is it a sala de guerra? Yeah. Or a project nest. If you're with smaller children, project nest is more kind. So what is a war room? A war room is a place where the entire team can bring their artifacts, their post-it notes, their photographs, their remarks, their thinking, and they can share it in a non-digital format. And the reason for this is, can I borrow your iPad, please? Thank you. So look at this iPad. Whose iPad is it? Is it our iPad? It's ours! She wants it back. Can you see what's here? No. And the other thing is, it's that screen. That's the screen. It doesn't get bigger, not on this model. So the problem is the real estate, the area of the screen is too small for big, big ideas. We need a bigger screen. The biggest screen we have are our walls. Thank you. So this is our favorite project space in Berlin. It's called the Beta House. The house where everything is in beta, never finished. And it is a space designed to have stuff put up on the walls, pasted on the side. If you want to do a workshop here, it's a wonderful place to take a team, and very cheap. So here's another one. This is another war room that we created in the headquarters of Google. Google asked us to redesign their entire teacher academy. And the first thing we did is we said, we don't want to use your technology on day one. We want to use the wall. They didn't like it at first, but they loved it eventually, because what happened was this. Teachers came with sketches of things they noticed in their school, things that didn't work, things that kind of worked, things that could be better. They brought their post-its, their sketches, their printouts. If they made a PowerPoint, they brought it in paper and put it up. So the teams were busy. They were really enthusiastically discussing. And the director of Google for Education came into the room, and she panicked. She said, I thought we started today. And we said, yeah, we've not started yet. They've just arrived. These are teams who've never met each other. But because they had this democratic device called paper and post-its and a large wall, they didn't wait for us to tell them what to do. They started to share. And we didn't need to give them instructions. This is learning that's quite intuitive. And it was incredibly impressive. In a class, it looks like this. It's the same. It's the same, but different. And it has a disorder. It doesn't look like a neat classroom display. This is what a child's brain looks like when it's learning. It's a mess. But over time, the children bring order to their ideas. They do that, not you. It's not about you chunking up learning for them. It's about them chunking up learning for themselves. I want to finish with a few quick points. The first one is, you do have to capture learning. You have to capture thinking. If a child says, I've thought about it, the first question back should be, show me. Build it. Let me see it. You know, when I was at school and a teacher said, you know, I want you to read chapter 9 for tomorrow, I would be the kid that goes, consider it done, shut the book, wouldn't read the chapter. Why? Because there's no proof of thinking. I didn't have to show I had thought. Where you have to share your thinking with your peers, there's a autonomy, yes, but there's accountability that comes with it too. Responsibility for your team. And it means that a weaker learner can really benefit from a strong learner, but it also means a strong learner has to go way above what they're doing today in order to share their expertise. So capturing thinking, for me, is a real core part of what we're talking about. And we do the same with school strategy. So when we work with a school changing its strategy, it's the same. It's photographs of what learning looks like. It's sketches of what physical environments look like. It's post-it notes that describe the type of learning that parents, students, and leaders in the school see. It's teachers' voices mixed in there. So when you have this large amount of immersion, eventually there comes a point where you have to bring it together. And that's synthesis. This is where you start to join the dots. It's where you start to say, hey, we need to make meaning from all this data. And this is where you have to design discussions. To this point, I just want to say one thing. If I were to say, if someone says, what do you mean design a discussion? It simply means that you never tell students, discuss that between yourselves, ever again. Discuss that between yourselves. Discuss that between yourselves for a 9-year-old boy means what? Did you see Barcelona playing last night? Real Madrid, it's a good match. And the teacher, you know, that's discuss it amongst yourselves. Or good students trying their best to have a discussion, discuss the wrong thing. You've got this in your plan and they're discussing that, and there's no point in me getting them to discuss. I'm just going to tell them because it's the easiest thing to do. You're right. If you don't design the discussion, they're going to go off any old way. So designing discussion's vital. We provide these kind of ideas. So with all those post-it notes, you can simply cluster post-it notes, group post-it notes, and have a discussion about why you're choosing to put data there and not there, creating timelines, that kind of thing. But you can also undertake some really interesting hexagonal thinking, which I mentioned before. If a teacher writes out the key concepts of a curriculum onto hexagons and then invites students to say, this goes with this, that connects with that, then you end up with great debate in the class as the students disagree. They say, no, 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 I think it goes like this instead. These ideas are not the cause of that, they're the effect of getting it right. And we have some more information on how to do this hexagonal thinking on the Notosh website. But the key point of it is you, as a teacher, point number 6, need to drive towards problem finding. These exercises are about students finding problems. So when you're organizing data, what's the problem that you can find? What's the opportunity you can spot? Point number 6 then, driving towards problem finding. What does that mean? It means that if you're a school leader looking at strategy, you might say, well, we've got all these options. We could add to what we're doing, but we should really take away as well. So this is a designed discussion for strategy. What do you want to eliminate from your school? What do you want to raise the value of? What do you want to reduce the value of? And what do you want to create from scratch new? When we did this in Nanjing, it was fascinating. The first thing they wanted to eliminate was this sense of divide. There was a sense that actually we have a difference between Chinese community and us, and we're a school in China. And they wanted to reduce the constant focus on one-to-one computing. You know, okay, we have computers for every child, but do we have to go on about it? Do we have to now get one-to-one tablets as well, or one-to-one telephones? When does it stop? So they reduced its importance. But more importantly, they looked at raising the China-ness of the school. They felt our school could be anywhere in the world. It could be a school in Zaragoza. You wouldn't know you were in China. How can we raise the value of being in China? And another thing that they wanted to create was a real sense of student ownership of learning, which had never been there before. So by combining these things, they picked out a couple of interesting points. The first is, there was stuff they knew, known knowns. So they knew that students did well in their school. They had some known unknowns as well. They knew that there was a difference between Chinese staff and international staff, but they didn't know how to bring it closer. That was a known unknown. They knew how to ask the question, but they had never answered it. So known unknowns. But far more interesting than these two, and the thing that really the innovation happens, is in the unknown space. What is it that you don't even know you don't know? And there's a lot more unknown in the world than stuff you think you know. In fact, most of the world is stuff that we didn't even know we didn't know. So when the school explored this, they laid out the research that showed, first of all, well, we know that it all feels like our school's about grades. We know that our school feels like it could be in Zaragoza as much as in China. And we know that teachers are always asking for more stuff, more resources, in order to teach better, when we know that that's probably not the thing that they need to do. So to get into the unknown, they asked themselves, well, how might we resolve this? How might we? And they came up with two how might we's. The first, how might we burst the bubble that we have around us as an international school in China? This is huge. You have to think of the context of China. It's not a place where you just say, hey, we're here, open the doors, come in. Chinese students are not allowed to go to that school. And the second challenge was this: how might we put student voice and choice at the center of everything we do? Which means that the governing board of the school must have students in it. It means that every class must be co-designed with students. These are hugely ambitious goals, but that's exactly what they intended. They wanted to explore the things they didn't even know they didn't know. So have they just written a strategy document? No. They are building. They're not just building one idea, they are building numerous ideas. And building your idea for real, if you have a creative way to teach differently, this is maybe the one point I would love you to take away. You've got to do something. Don't just think that because you thought innovatively that you are innovative. Don't just think that because you've read John Hattie and you've read Dylan William and you've been to this conference that somehow you are now anointed. And, you know, I've read John Hattie, ergo I must be a good teacher. No, you have to actually do something. And that's the fatal flaw in a lot of teacher education. What does doing something look like? In Nanjing, this is what we did. They started small. The art teacher changed the way that she taught art. So instead of giving students a lecture about journeys, she opened up the wall and she said, you give me a lesson about journeys. And she was able to capture the students' thinking about what going on a journey means for an art project. The other one is kids always asking for resources. Can I, can I, can I? So they made the resources freely available everywhere. Lego bricks, crayons, post-it notes, stickies, and even super expensive video and digital cameras. These were locked away in cupboards for safety, which meant students couldn't use them when they wanted to. So they said, look, if a student steals one, it costs less than the cost of having all this locked away. So these lie open, and they trust the students and respect students not to steal them. And you know what? Students use them. What a surprise. If you leave brilliant technology for students there, they will use it, and they'll use it better than you, very often. So these are small prototypes, but this is what it led to. A $3 million design center. A new building based on all the work 3 years of prototyping and testing ideas. And this is the design centre that everyone flies around the world to go and see, because the learning happening there is incredible. But the learning happening there was incredible 2 years before they even touched the ground to build the space. So this is not where the greatness happened. The greatness happened because teachers decided to do small things and build. Build and build a little bit more. And so really, that is my penultimate point. I could go on about building. Here's my last point, and it's to do really with, I'm going to tie it to feedback and feed forward, because we haven't really talked about it, but feedback has 35 years of research behind it. 35 years of research tells us that if you give someone feedback, and only feedback, words telling them you did well here, but this could be better and you might try that kind of feedback, their learning improves. It shouldn't surprise us. If you give that same feedback with a number or a letter next to it, there is no change in students' performance. They will not improve. And if you only give a letter and a number, nothing. So the research is very clear. Stop grading students through the course of a year. Consider maybe only grading students at transition between 1 year and the next, or end of primary into middle school, or middle secondary to higher secondary, but you don't need to test every week with a pop quiz about whether the kids can spell 10 words. That's not how you get better at spelling. You get better at spelling by writing stories and novels and having people tell you lots of times that's not how we spell this. So we had an art teacher in one of the most elite international schools in the world, in Tokyo. If you go to an elite international school, you go to it and you pay your $40,000 a year because you're going to get a grade. That's the point. Yeah? It's going to be a good grade. Platinum plated, gold plated. So that's what it's for. This teacher said, okay, I won't give grades anymore. And so this is what she said. This was the impact of deciding one day not to give grades anymore in her class.
A boy came up to me that, I think he's just a sophomore, but he came up to me and said, I noticed next year it says in the school handbook that that art is just going to be pass-fail. And he said, that's going to be wonderful. And I said, why? And he said, because then I can take risks and I can try something that I wouldn't try if I thought that I could do poorly on it. And I'm not great.
I thought I could take a risk that I wouldn't take if I thought there was a grade attached to it. Now, I've said taking risks isn't risky. Why have I said that? What happened to the performance of her students? Did it go down or did it go way up? The performance of her students went through the roof. They did a lot better than the students who were receiving grades and letters and numbers for their works. Taking risks is not risky. Doing nothing is very risky. Leaving here tonight with no next action is totally risky. Why? Because I know that you've lost 90 minutes of your life that you will never get back again. I know that it's wasted. I know that 90 minutes would have been better spent with your family. So yes, it's very risky not taking a risk. So I implore you tonight to leave with one thing that you will do. And I've given you 10 things to consider. Taking risks is not risky, but let's go back through the top 10. Provoking. Provoking in order to have students ask brilliant questions. Number 2, curate wonder. Think very carefully and don't plan it the days before you're going to teach. Plan it a month before. Because if you need to take your students to Barcelona to help them understand what 20th century art looks like, you need to plan that. How many of you have those ideas the night before? Oh, it would have been good if we could have done this. So we plan more in advance. We plan hard to teach easy. Number 3, we ask the right questions. Spend as much time planning 2 amazing teacher questions instead of spending that time developing a PowerPoint or a stupid worksheet that is going to bore the kids to death. Spend that time on asking the right question and you've got 30 minutes of amazing dialogue and learning in your class, and also learning what kind of listening you can do. Think about the space in your class, in your school. Have you got the space for students to show what they're thinking? 6, you've got to capture thinking. You've got to help students capture thinking. The squid, you could Google that. The squid is a beautiful way that we've been using today to capture people's thinking about a certain topic. Give it a home. Design discussion. Is boremos, does that mean delete? Is that correct? Yeah? So, boremos la, discuss this between yourself. No more discuss this between yourselves. That's a waste of time. Think carefully, what could I give them that's going to really be difficult but lead to a much richer discussion? Drive towards problem finding. Students don't want your problems to solve. They don't want you to create a problem that they solve. They really enjoy finding their own problem to go and then solve them on their own. Much more ownership of their learning. Number 9, build, build, build. Don't just think about doing cool stuff. Do cool stuff. Think about what you're going to create to show, and think about what your students create to show their thinking. And then finally, I take you back to our little plastic friend. This is the most important. This is point 10. And if you did this, I would be happy. Start asking why and why not a lot more often. It's healthy to ask why. Ask your director, why do we do it this way? Why not try it that way? What's the worst that can happen? The worst that can happen is you force your director to think. That's all. To think. I wonder, why do we do it that way? Good point. Let's try someone. Why not try something different? Those are your 10 takeaways. This is the first time I've given this talk in this way. It was 7 minutes longer than predicted, which is not bad for a new talk. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed your dancing earlier on. So you had dancing on a school night. That's really quite exceptional. I would like to thank the sponsors who really made this happen. I'd also like to thank Bibiana, who is the person speaking in your ear, the translator. Could you give Bibiana a big round of applause? Thank you very much.
La semana que viene tenemos aquí el congreso de Flip Classroom, 6, 7 y 8 de mayo, y el día 10 les emplazo también a la conferencia que les comentaba para, pues para ver las posibilidades de implantar la innovación educativa en el centro escolar, ¿no? Pienso que también va a ser otra conferencia muy interesante. Muchísimas gracias de nuevo por estar con nosotros y buenas noches.